All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome back to Heel Report, which is a part of Tar Heel 247.com. I'm Jacob Turner. He's Andrew Jones, and we are here for another UNC basketball show, UNC Hoop Show, the North Carolina Basketball Podcast, whatever the heck you want to call it, man. We've been calling it the UNC Basketball Show for years now, and let me credit us for just coming up with the absolutely fantastic title for a podcast, and one of the most original names of all time, the UNC Basketball Show. We got to give ourselves a lot of title back for that.
The reason he and I were just having some fun, like we don't really do the so-called UNC Basketball Show. Like in football, every week we do the UNC Football Show because there's a consistent drumbeat to the football season. There isn't that with basketball, but we have 5 days in between. So we thought UNC Basketball Show. So that is going to be some award-winning stuff with that title there, Jacob.
I know, man. You're
gonna add something to the mantle.
Yeah, you know me, man. I took a lot of time to figure that one out. I was like, you know what? We're straight to the point here at Heel Report. Let's just call it the UNC Basketball Show. We've had that for years now, so we're gonna keep rolling with that.
Back in the early 12-ounce curl days, there was you always want to find where's the cheapest beer you can buy, so you can do the quantity, the volume, 100%. And there was a drug, like a dart drug or something back in the day, Rite Aid or whatever the hell it was called. And they had a brand of beer called Beer. It was a white can with black writing beer, and it said 12 FLOZ.
I don't hate
it.
Had
the place where it was printed. Of course, we had to get it and try it. And it was, I do not recommend drinking beer.
Yeah.
But that was about the same effort with that name as Jacob Turner and the rest of us are attempting with the UNC Basketball Show name. So we're the equivalent of beer.
Yeah, literally, that is right. Before you guys hate on our title, get in the comments below and let us know what we should call it. I need an original title from you guys. I'm going to task our audience with it because good luck brainstorming something because I found it difficult. I'm straight to the point. UNC Basketball Show, good for the algorithm. We're going to stick with it for now unless somebody can come up with a better title. But AJ,
and we got a jam-packed snarky.
Don't be snarky. Yeah, don't be snarky down there.
I don't want to nice. Snark.
Keep the title nice. We're not going to call it, Jacob and AJ's horrible basketball podcast. We're not going to call it that. We're going to call it something clean.
Obliviating BS on the heels.
Yeah, two guys talk absolute nonsense about Carolina basketball. Hopefully that's not the title you guys come up with down there. But AJ, we got a jam-packed show ahead, man. We're going to talk a little Seth Trimble in this one, obviously coming off a big performance early this week against Louisville, top of mind. Dive into a little bit of his numbers that are also featured in your odds and ends piece that came out on Wednesday morning. I believe this will be coming out Wednesday early evening. We're also going to talk about a little stat that I actually, not a little stat, a little fact that I actually got from watching the Ovius and Giglio show. I'll credit to them for coming up with it. Stay tuned for what that is, but I want to bring that up later on and just kind of see if there's anything we can glean from it, because I think it's an interesting fact about how Carolina has played and performed against the 6 ranked teams that they played this season. We're also going to talk of some historical context around Carolina. 22-6 right now through 28 games, 10-5 in ACC play. We'll dive into some historical stuff again. That is in AJ's odds and ends piece as well. I don't know if you guys have noticed, a lot of times on these Wednesday pods, we'll take something AJ's written and kind of build off that and explore it a little bit more, which is why you should be signed up for a premium subscription at tarhill247.com. Link is in the description.
It's all right there, Freddie. We do the research so you don't have to.
Exactly, man. That's why AJ sits there for 2 a.m. in the morning crunching them big time numbers, man. Probably a little bit too early, more like 3
a.m. The notepads. It's these.
Yeah. Just filling in things.
Why are you buying so many notepads again? Well, because I'm used them up.
Just filling in things.
Stacks. I actually have a storage unit with all my old Wilmington Star News. My mom used to save them, bless her heart, rest in peace. And notepads. I have notepads of stuff going back to when I started in this business, which will be very interesting. I won't be able to read it though, because I cannot read my own handwriting after like 3 hours. Like I have no idea.
It's a shame you haven't kept any of your credentials. It's not like you have any credentials behind you or anything.
I have these drawers. I have all this stuff. I've got this Orioles thing right here. All that is credentials in there.
Oh, I love it.
The thing weighs about 6 pounds.
I believe it, man. I freaking believe that. This thing, I got a couple drawers full of them too. I stopped collecting them a little bit ago, but I need to start back up. I don't get it.
Yeah, you start back up. It's good because it's a good reminder, and it tells me quite long in the tooth, pal.
Yeah, it's like, man, you've been doing this for a while, man. You look at all those credentials. But let's dive into this thing, man. Seth Trimble, I want to talk about him. And the numbers are interesting. I mean, he's obviously had an awesome, massive performance earlier this week in the win over Louisville. You look at his stat line: 30 points, 4 assists, 4 rebounds, 11 for 16 from the floor. Only attempted 3 3-pointers, and also 7-11 for a line, which is pretty much for this North Carolina team. 7 for 11 for the line might as well be like 95%. So credit to him for hitting those free throws in that one. But AJ, I think the numbers with him are interesting because let's rewind it to the halftime of the Syracuse game. And Derek Dixon and the team gets on Seth and essentially says something along the lines of, hey man, like, I don't know if you've noticed yet, Seth, but we kind of go as you go. Like this car doesn't really run unless it's like he's the gasoline to the car. It's like this car doesn't really run right unless it's filled up with gas, and you provide that for us. Even Hubert Davis said something along the similar lines to him at the halftime of the game. And it shows the importance that he brings to this team, not only with his on-court production, but the leadership that he has off the team, obviously being a captain for them as well. So if you look at his Carolina's 4 recent wins, AJ, and what Seth Trimble's done, he's been in double figures in all 4, 16 points, 19 points, 13 points, and 30 points. And this is going back to the Duke game. So looking at Carolina's 4 wins since the Duke game, including the Duke game. You look at their 2 recent losses, though, what's the common theme, AJ? He's only scored 4 points in each, and that was at NC State and also on the road at Miami too, just for different reasons, disappointing performances for the Tar Heels. We've also got some more stats I'll let you dive into on kind of what his stat lines are, averages are in the 5 losses, in the 14 wins and whatnot. But I think it's safe to say, and I don't think it's a super difficult statement to understand, that this team goes as Seth goes. When Seth plays well, particularly offensively, particularly scoring the ball, and he impacts the game in those ways, Carolina tends to win, and they can tend to perform better as well. So, AJ, what made you in this odds and ends piece dive into the numbers with him, and how were you at all surprised when you kind of brought those numbers out and said, wow, in 14 games that Carolina's won this season, he's averaged 15.3 points per game? Like, it seems like a pretty obvious correlation when you look at just this team and how it's kind of worked this season.
I wasn't surprised, and part of the reason why I figured that I would include that in odds and ends is because it would turn out the numbers it did. What I was just doing a minute ago, as you were doing that, people were like, what's AJ doing? I wanted to go a little deeper. They've played 6 games against what I would call pretty big time brand programs. All right. They beat Kansas. They won at Kentucky. All right. They lost to Michigan State and Florida, but he didn't play in the Kentucky and Michigan State games. They beat Virginia. They beat Duke. They beat Louisville. So the 4 he's played in: Kansas, Virginia, Duke, and Louisville. He's averaging 19.7 points a game.
And let me just clarify. He's only played in 19 of Carolina's 28 games, and they're 14-5 in those 19 games.
14-5. Now you had that 3 out of 4. He had 22 against SMU. Didn't do much on the West Coast. So the SMU thing kind of I thought his stats in the losses would be a little lower, a little worse, but the SMU kind of throws it out. Yeah. And that was a game where he had a lot of success driving and stuff. But by the way, they're 5-1 against these brands. And Ohio State's not the same brand it used to be, so you can't really throw them in there. They're a bubble team again. They haven't been very good for about 10 years now. They've been okay. But these other ones are legitimately brands, as first or second tier. Louisville, Michigan State are in that second tier for sure. And Virginia's in, I think Virginia, because of last 15 years, you can put them sort of in that realm as well for right now. He's done very well, 19.7 points a game. And in the ones that he's played, they're 4-0 against the brands. Mm-hmm. So he didn't play Kentucky. They won there. And he didn't play against Michigan State. And it was a 3-point game with 9 minutes left. And then Carolina just kind of buckled. And that's when, they kind of, with that stretch when Caleb didn't score for 20 minutes and they lost that night because they didn't really have what it took. The other Caleb drought games were when Seth was there and they were able to survive as they got better and better. So he win. They are just a much better team. Henry, I would love to go back and listen to when I asked him about Seth the other night, but he basically said, we're a great team when Seth's doing that. And I think what you need 3 dudes who can get you a lot of stuff that can hit a pretty high volume if you're going to make a run. And they all can't be cut from a similar cloth. while Henry and Caleb are very different players, the cloth they're cut from is the front court. Mm-hmm. A lot of it's around the rim. You can run a lot of the same stuff for both of them, right? Seth is completely different than them. He's not a perimeter shooter. He's only got 15 threes in the season, or 17 threes in the season. I think he can be a decent shooter out there. It depends on the shots he takes. He has one make since the Trimble 3, but everybody does it on press row all the time. He shoots one. Rod Bax is like, Trimble. It's a lot of fun. But anyway, his ability to score and drive and just force defenses to suck in, like they have to suction in to try to stop him. Man, when Caleb comes back, if the attacking Seth is there and he's having success, and you've also got Caleb out there, this team has a chance to be very, very interesting and very difficult to guard. They're so much more difficult to defend when Seth is in attack mode. And he's also finishing now. We talked about this the other day, and he's the first person to tell you that finishing has been probably his ball handling when he got there, and finishing throughout, and I think staying healthy too. No concussion this season, knock on wood. Let's hope.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, injuries.
I think that finishing he would tell you has been his biggest bugaboo, and Hubert would as well. I've asked Hubert and talked to him about it 7 or 8 different times over the last few years about Seth being decisive at the rim. And one of the things he's learned to do this year that he didn't do as much of before, and it's an art. Guys that learn how to use the rim as a shield when they're going up, a reverse layup or whatever the case may be, because unless you just screw up, the rim can't block your shot, but the rim prevents the defender. If you know how to, if you have great control of your body, which Seth does have, and he has better control now than he used to, and you go up for a layup and you're going to be challenged, you can use the rim as a shield. He's got great hang time and he can lay it up on the other side. He's done that quite a bit this season, and certainly more of late. So I think that guy that we've seen obviously elevates them, but I'm really intrigued to see what controlled hair on fire Seth is like with Caleb Wilson, who when he comes back, he's gonna have like a nuclear surge in him when he comes back. I'm telling you, he cannot. Dude is just chomping at the bit to come back. So he's going to join something that's appears to be enhancing itself right now, and a big part of that is obviously Seth.
Yeah, and I think what shows his aggressiveness too, AJ, he's attempted 30 plus free throws in the last 4 games. I'm looking at the stats right here.
30, how many is that? I have it in there. It's 37, is it?
I think you have 37. That number might be off. I'm looking at it right now.
Well, he has 2 games at 30 with 11.
Yes, 2 at 11 and then 1 at – and then Syracuse and Stady combined for 11 in those games, which I guess will come out to 33. 33? So that number might be a little bit off based on what I'm seeing.
I'll have to go back and look.
Because 11 against Louisville, 7 against Cuse, 4 against State, and 11 against Pitt. So I believe that comes out to 33. Check my math on that. I am not a math novice there. But yeah, regardless, whether it's 33, 37.
It's 37 of the last 5 games is what it is. So
okay, over the last 5. Gotcha.
I may have had that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that makes sense because he had 4 in the Miami game. So yes, that is correct. 37 in the last 5 games.
So it should read last 5.
Yeah, in the last 4 games alone, he's had 33, and that shows his aggressiveness, AJ. And I think the Louisville game presented that opportunity because Louisville's not a great team at protecting the rim. They're not the tallest team in the world as well. Seth Trimble was able to get in the lane and finish and be aggressive the whole night, and it led to him having a career night for the Tar Heels. So it feels like long may that continue because even diving further into it too, you look at in the 5 losses he's played in, he's averaged 11 points, shot 35% from the floor and 27% from 3. You look at the 14 wins he's played in, AJ, 15 points per game, shot 51.4% from the floor and 35% from 3. So it's no coincidence when Seth Trimble plays better, this team plays better. They don't always win, but when Seth Trimble has a good night, more often than not, Carolina has a lot better opportunity to win no matter who they're playing. So that trend needs to continue. You can't have Seth, in order for this team to be successful, to be putting up 4 points on the road and shooting 1 for 9 like he did against State or 0 for 5 from the floor against Miami. That's not a recipe for success for this team. So it's going to be very interesting to see, I think, especially moving into the postseason, what Seth's numbers look like, because there is obviously a very direct correlation there between
on both
Carolina
ends.
being successful and him playing better. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because when he's aggressive, that means that he's not standing. And I think we've hit on this a gazillion times, and I'm sure every person listening, watching agrees with this. It's quite obvious that when they struggle the most in scoring stretches when they just stand around and there's way too much dribbling. But if you've got him with, a flame under his rear, playing that way and doing so with confidence, it changes the whole movement. They didn't have that problem for the most part against Syracuse. They didn't have that problem against Louisville. They played much more fluid offense, and they did a lot of stuff outside the sets. And that's why having a guy like that on the floor is so beneficial, because if it breaks down, he's a shot creator. He creates scoring opportunities for himself. Even that little stuff in the lane. I wish he had a little bit more of a direct floater. He does have that shot where he gets in the lane, he stops and turns around, hits a fading turnaround jumper where he doesn't have great elevation, but he can hit that. But if he developed a floater in his game, and I guess part of the mindset of not having the floaters, he wants to flush and wants to finish. Remember, Justin Jackson had one of the great floaters ever at Carolina. Justin wasn't a massive finisher at the rim. He was more of a floater guy. Seth wants to get to that rim, and we've seen with a couple missed dunks in the half court lately, which are good misses because they signify all that fuel is there with him. Seth wants to be that guy. But, man, if he had a little bit of a floater, that would be fantastic. He also is a hand changer. A couple of times he's gone up and he's changed hands and scored. Mm-hmm. That wired in guy is a really, really good basketball player. And he becomes a better leader because leaders over time need to produce. We're in a production-oriented society now, and these younger guys, respect isn't just, the old man who patches it up and gets out there and sets the best screens in the world, and he's a great rah-rah leader, and kids look up to him because they've been in the program for a while. That's different now in college basketball. If you're going to command respect, you got to produce. And I think Seth's a better leader and talks a better game and brings people along with him when he produces, maybe more than some other guys would, because he's got that element to him. And he's been better defensively too, Leska. He hasn't had the best defensive year in terms of what the expectations were. I think he struggled at times because I think Seth has struggled at times. I think he's been through some ups and downs. The injury threw him off. I thought it took a little while for him to find his voice when he came back. Sometimes the voice when you're injured and there's no skin in the game because you're not on the court is different and how it's received. And suddenly when you get out there and you make a bad pass and the guy's like, hey, wait a minute, man, you just made a bad pass. It's all the human nature stuff. And he's been fighting through that, and he's been pretty open about it. I kind of admire the fact that Seth said to me on Saturday at Syracuse, yeah, I was playing like a little kid. Those are his words. So it's where you could tell stuff's been weighing on his mind. Even the game against Duke and the shot. I mean, you hit that. Well, hey, man, what are you going to do for an encore? When you go to Miami and you score 4 points, your two best players get hurt and you lose. That's a heavy load for a guy who understands the weight of this program. So right now, if he's poking his head through the clouds and he's coming out on the other side, then that's a good thing. Even that flight back from Syracuse the other day, as horrible as the weather was, we finally got above all the clouds. And it was nice out. Yeah. So maybe Seth is kind of at his 38,000 feet right now.
Yeah, I mean, he was big in the second half. I think he had no points at halftime. I think he only attempted one shot at halftime of the Syracuse game. He ended up finishing with 13 on 5 for 7 shooting. So, yeah, the impact in that game. And he missed 4 free throws. I mean, again, I keep harping on it because I just have a horrible feeling that Carolina's things are going to happen in the postseason negatively because Carolina's free throw shooting is one of the worst in college basketball this season. But if he can
someone said to me very quickly, yesterday, well, they're really showing they can win close games. I said, you do realize those 3-point wins should be 9-point wins.
Yeah, I've said before, like Carolina would probably have won every game this year, damn near by double digits. Not everyone, but close to it if they could just hit, if they were above average.
They beat Virginia by 5. They should have beat Virginia by 10.
Exactly. And that's something that I just
beat Ohio State by 1. Should have beat Ohio State by 6.
Yeah, that's something we'll have to continue to follow and we'll talk about it more in other shows, I'm sure, because it's going
to be, if they lose early in the tournament, free throws are going to be a massive part of the story. 100%.
That's how you lose games. Yeah.
And that's why it's going to be really difficult as we're veering off into a territory we didn't plan on discussing. But I'll say it very quickly. We'll address it more as we get closer to the postseason because they still have games to play and they know that. I mean, now everyone's getting asked about the free throws, and so we'll see if it changes or if the weight continues on them. But it's hard. It's going to be hard for people to pick them that know them to win 6 games because of the free throws.
Yeah, it's just been so bad, man. It's just been. You
could survive Louisville at home. You could survive at Syracuse. But if you're in the Sweet 16 in Houston or DC or San Diego or something, and you're playing Purdue or you're playing Illinois or you're playing, I don't know, Kansas again or something like that, it's going to be difficult to survive shooting free throws at a 50% clip.
They're 319 nationally right now in free throws out of 365 teams. But AJ, they are not the worst.
It's been a steady drop.
You know what's crazy though, AJ? There's the 2 worst teams on free throws are Syracuse and Boston College. And a few spots ahead of them at 347 is Pittsburgh. So they're not even.
I think they play soon again. And if I were Jim Phillips, I would have a mandate with the officials. Do not blow the whistle. No fouls. Because that means those guys got to go to the line. And
there's at least 4 ACC teams worse. Miami's right behind them. That's wild. I thought they were for sure like.
The only thing is if they played that game at Connie Forum, no one would get hurt.
Yeah.
As balls carry them off the backboard and rim because there's nobody in the building.
Yeah, that's true. You wouldn't have to worry too much about that. There's your annual ricochet shot at Boston College. We have in every one of these podcasts now. I appreciate it too because it's just they're fucking abysmal. But
it's not a hate. Love this Flutie statue.
Yeah, you do love the Flutie statue. You're a big Flutie statue guy. You love that.
I make a point of looking at it every time I go there.
As AJ would say, I get goosebumps every time I look at it. Thing just starts flaring up on you, man. But yeah, not even the worst, not even the third worst team in the ACC in free throw shooting. There are actually 4 teams worse than them. So, but still, yeah, that is something you could easily see coming back and haunt Carolina at some point. And again, we'll continue to see that trend, see what it shapes out like in the final 3 games of regular season going to the ACC tournament. But it is something that concerns me, and I think is started to become even more of a topic of conversation amongst Carolina fans because the postseason is fast approaching, and Carolina basketball fans know ball, man. They know a bad free throw shooting team you can easily lose a close game.
They were 7 for 15 over the last 8 minutes the other night.
It's not good. What did they shoot? 47%?
47.4. The last 2 games have been season lows. It was 53.3% against Syracuse, season low, and then they bettered that, or if you will, 47.4.
It's not great. Yeah, it's just not great. Yeah, that's got to improve. I don't know if it will at this point. Like Hubert Davis says, if you're a Carolina fan, just pray, I guess.
I did a free throw shooting story we ran Tuesday, and it was not VIP. Anybody can read it. I actually outlined the point in time of the game, score and time of those 15 free throws. And like you could kind of see, oh, wow, that would have changed that. That would have made a 10-point game 12 with 5:50 left or whatever. You'd be able to see in there the effect. And that last play with 0.8 seconds, I guess they added a little bit of time when there was the deliberation about how much time was left. Derek Dixon hits 2 for 2 there. It doesn't matter. If I'm Hubert, I just pull my team off over the side and don't even let them play defense.
Yeah, just
no risk of foul. So free throws are a massive story moving forward because they get more important as you get close to March.
Yeah, and despite Carolina being a poor free throw shooting team, they still have a very good record against ranked opponents. This is what I want to bring up. I mentioned this earlier as we moved this thing on. I was listening to Ovius and Giglio. You've been a common occurrence guest on there as well. I always enjoy listening to them when you on there, especially. But no, they have a great show over there. They cover Triangle Sports and been doing it for years. But I like to tune into some of their shows from time to time. And I thought it was interesting because they had a segment yesterday I think it was Tuesday's show, I believe. Towards the end of the show where I think it was Giglio brought up I think he had essentially kind of a theory about why he thinks Carolina could be a national title contender. I hope I'm not butchering what his theory was here. But he popped a graphic up that made me sit back and go, I don't think I'd really noticed that trend before. And here's what it is. So UNC has played 6 ranked teams this year, AJ. They're 5 in one of those games. The only loss coming against, who is it, guys? Michigan State. And that was a game in which Carolina was behind big and then kind of kept it close and ended up losing that game in the end.
Seth didn't play.
Yeah, Seth didn't play in that one as well. But here's the trend that I thought was interesting. So in those 5 wins, AJ, starting with the Louisville game, Carolina was behind by 10 against Louisville, 12 at the half against Duke, 16 at Virginia, 10 points against Kansas late in the first half. And this is kind of the outlier, but still a deficit. It's not as big, but it's still a deficit. 5 at Kentucky with a little bit less than 11 minutes left in that game. Carolina won all 5 of those games. And I looked at it and I said, I want to get AJ's take on this because I wonder if it means anything. Because I think there's 2 ways you can look at it. You can look at it and say, well, Carolina always, it seems like whenever Carolina plays a good team, they dig this hole. You know, the smallest deficit being 5, the biggest being 16 in these. You look at that and say, well, that's not good. But then you look at it on the flip side and you say, well, Carolina's come back from all of these deficits and won every one of these games. You know, a couple of these on the road. You mentioned at UVA and at Kentucky. So I wanted to get your thoughts on it and see kind of how you feel about it, because I'm personally still a little bit torn, because I look at it and say, that's great. You're getting behind against good teams and you're coming back and you're finding ways to win. That shows fight. That shows togetherness. That shows a team that when adversity strikes, they are able to regroup, tweak, alter, and pivot and find ways to win. But like I said, on the flip side too, it's like maybe just like stop getting down by 16 on the road at Virginia. Maybe just don't do that and stop making you have to come back in these games, because it feels like you're also at some point that's going to come back and bite you. And I guess the Michigan State game was one of those examples where Carolina fought back a little bit, but was never able to win that one. So what do you make of that kind of fact and trend, AJ? And do you look at it as a positive or negative or a little bit in between?
Winning's a positive.
It's true.
It's the ultimate positive. So you could really parse through how a game played out, but in the end, we're hitting a point, by the way, in my opinion, after they get through Virginia Tech, once they start with Clemson, it doesn't matter how they play as long as they win.
Yeah, you're 100% right. Yeah.
You could play like crap for 6 straight games in the NCAA tournament or think you play like crap, but if you win every game by a point, you're the national champion.
Some guy online will complain about it, but it doesn't matter. You're right.
That's fine. Lots of guys, I can't believe we let him go on a 4-0 run.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of stuff.
They'd be trying to fire Hubert. He wins a national title. Well, we were behind by 20 in each game. So, like, okay. Yeah.
Really.
There will be that.
Be better prepared. He's got to be getting better prepared. I get it.
I do too. Yeah, that's why I'm making fun.
I want to add this before I go more into that. What's interesting is that in 3 of those wins, they've gotten a total of 2 baskets from Caleb Wilson over the final stretch. Because he didn't play against Louisville. He had 2 of their final 38 points against Duke, and he had 1 bucket in the last 13 out of 14 minutes at UVA.
It's a great point.
So it tells me that there's a lot more on this team than sometimes people are focused on. And I think we've seen that sort of start to play itself out now that he's been out for 4 games. I also think I'm going to go 2 ways here. Let's start with the deficits. I think this team has been trying to find itself all year. And part of it has been the wrenches that have been thrown into things. Seth missed 9 games. The reality is this team has played 13 games in which everybody's been healthy. Everybody that matters has been healthy. The 14th game that they played together, there's only 14 games. Half the time have they suited up Seth, Henry, and Caleb in the same game. The 14th one of those was the Miami game where both Henry and Caleb got hurt. So only 13 of 28 games, the 3 of them have suited up and been healthy from start to end. So that's one thing.
Mic drop.
Yeah. And what's the irony is you got SMU, Stanford, and Cal tucked right in the middle of that. Right? So I think this team has been kind of finding itself. Hubert's tinkered with starting lineups. There's been emergences. Zayden High is an emergence of late, which is massive.
Huge.
Massive. Especially if they're going to want to trim some minutes here and there for Henry and Caleb because of recovering from injury type stuff. Also, just the energy he has. He's different. He goes in there and gives them a lot of stuff. He's that current. He brings a current on the court, touches the other guys. They get electrocuted a little bit. He's got that in his game. I also think that during the process of finding themselves, Derek Dixon is the point guard now. Okay, he's become a little bit established at the point. Up until the other night, Kine had not established himself as a backup. And in being a backup, it's a role you have to establish. You have to become comfortable with it to excel. He showed big signs of that the other night. So part of the falling behind, I think, has been a club that's just still moving parts around. Right? This massive puzzle on the table, and some parts are together, but it's still all over the place. A few pieces fell on the floor. You don't even realize it, that kind of thing. So that's been part of it. But they come back because, as we've said, going back to September, and we believed it then, we were told and believed it, we've seen it come through. They have tremendous chemistry. Teams with bad chemistry get blown out on the road and don't fight. We've seen some teams in the league go on the road here in the last couple of weeks and get absolutely hammered and show no fight. They don't have great chemistry. They have great chemistry when things are going well. They don't have great chemistry when things are going bad. Carolina's had good chemistry when things are going bad. That's how you not only come from behind it by down 16 at UVA, but they got out-rebounded by 16. They got out-rebounded by 12 against Duke, out-rebounded by 9 against Louisville. That's, 37 boards in those 3 games? And they won all 3, and they were down double figures in all 3. That is a tough team. That's a mentally tough team. That's a club that has bigger boxing gloves than a lot of people give them credit for, because you've got to be that club to come back. And you've also got a lot of different guys that can get you buckets because it's spread around. If you go back and look at all those runs and coming back, a bunch of different guys are scoring. It's not just one guy. That's why I pointed out Caleb. Virginia and Duke very well might be the best wins in that whole group. And Caleb had 2 of their last 38 against Duke, and 1 bucket in the last 13, 14 minutes at UVA. And he didn't play against Louisville. Mm-hmm. So I didn't see the Giglio thing. I'll go watch it. Joe knows what he's looking at. Both Joes do. Giglio knows what he's looking at. They both have covered Final Fours. If he's talking about a club that can navigate and deal with obstacles, man, this club's had a lot of boulders come rolling down the hill. Mm-hmm. And they don't get squashed.
Yeah.
They may get dinged up a little bit, but they don't get squashed. So there is no statistic for this specifically. It's not going to show up in Ken Palm or the stupid net.
I
look at Louisville's resume and Carolina's resume. How in the hell is Louisville 14 in the net and Carolina 28 or whatever it is, 26?
NC State's been ahead of them the whole year. It's like
NC State gets completely trashed on the road and it doesn't really move much. And that's a team I'm talking about. Boy, when things go bad, look at their body language. When things go bad with the Tar Heels, they've had some bad body language. Mm-hmm. The body language in Berkeley in the first half was atrocious. The body language in the second half was damn good. And by the way, Caleb didn't have a lot to do statistically with the push they made there either. His presence mattered, but you know what? Now they're doing it without his presence out there. Mm-hmm. So when he comes back, you add that to a more refined, more hardened. You got Jaron Stevenson kind of wearing the fatigues out there a little bit more now. I thought the other night was his most fatigue-oriented game because of the way he played. He smiled, and he smiles the way the nice guy Jaron does. I swear if there's a guy on this team that looks for old ladies to help across the street, it's got to be him.
100%.
You know what I mean? He's just that dude. And you love that. But you know what, though? The block shot, the way he was fouled at Syracuse and Zayden stepping up for him. I asked him, Jaron, about that the other night, and big smile. I mean, that is fortifying stuff. So if you're going to beat them in the end, if you're going to get a big lead and you're going to beat them, you have to beat all of them. Because all of them have a hand in the comeback every time. So that's my read. Those are the kinds of teams that find ways to win the tournament. You're going to have tournament games where you need Luka to hit a couple extra shots than he does. You need that game where Kyan Evans gives you 9 incredible minutes off the bench as a backup. You don't lose anything in some ways enhanced. He hits a big 3. That scoop shot he attempted the other day was a shot we saw all the time at Colorado State last year. Hadn't seen it for a while. It shows confidence getting to the rim, little things like that. So they've got a lot of nice stuff in their sack that they throw over their shoulder and take to every game that a lot of other teams don't have. They still lack in some areas. They're not going to wow you on the perimeter defensively. They don't have a bunch of break you down off the dribble and score guys, but Seth's giving them that. Their free throws, we just talked about earlier, they've been terrible. It's the worst Carolina free throw shooting team I've ever seen. So there are some areas.
It is.
But the other thing we got to give credit to is back when Dean was head coach, they had this thing in the media guide where they would list all the great comebacks in Carolina history. The master of the comeback, Dean Smith. Hey, Dean Smith's team is down 16 with 12 minutes left. They got you right where they want you. They would find ways to come back to win. And Dean, part of his legend is absolutely doused in all those comebacks. Well, the guy at the helm now deserves credit for this because he doesn't lose his team when stuff is not going well. The other night looked like, oh my God, this is going to be bad when it was 23-13. And the only reason Carolina 13 was because Seth was playing his rear end off right out of the gate. Hubert makes a change and boom. I mean, he's made changes and he's gains. He deserves the credit. He deserves a lot of credit for it.
Oh, of course.
He's got a team with great chemistry. Well, who put the team together? He and Jim Tanner did. They deserve that credit.
But we're in this weird spot with Hubert now, and this is going to feed into what we're going to talk about next a little bit, but we're in this weird spot with Hubert now where when he wins, 90% of people give him no credit. When he loses, it's all his fault. Like, that's kind of the position we're in with him right now. I find it fascinating, and I get some of it. I really do. But the Louisville game, like, he got more credit from fans than I expected him to get, and he deserved it for that game because of them, deficit early, Caleb Wilson being out. Like, it wasn't a good night for the Hubert Davis haters on Monday night. It really wasn't.
No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't, and neither was Syracuse because his defensive plan against Donnie Freeman took Syracuse out of the game.
But he doesn't get credit for that. The player gets credit.
And it frustrated Freeman. Mm-hmm. And the rest of the team felt the frustration. I thought the other night that Conwell and Brown especially, their frustration was felt by the rest of the team. Carolina had a 43-17 run. The two of them were combined 3 for 18 during that run. They weren't missing just good shots. There was an extra dribble or two with a lot of Brown shots. Why? Carolina forced them into it. You have to give the credit where it's due. If Dean Smith got it because of a comeback in Reynolds Coliseum against Hawkeye Whitney and company in 1978, then Hubert should get it now against Mikael Brown, Ryan Como and company in 2026.
Of course.
It should apply to both.
And I get it. Like, I get it. Why I brought that up is because I understand it. Because if you look at the games that the 6-game Carolina's lost this year, I was talking with my dad about this, I think, might have been during the first half of the Miami game or something. But I was like, this team's either like can be really good, but when it's bad, because you look at their 6 losses. I mean, they were blown out in most of them. And you look at Stanford and California in the final score, and you say, well, they only lost by 5 at Stanford. You only lost by 6 at Cal, but they were so abysmally bad performances defensively that I get it. So I point that out to say, like, when Carolina's won this season like these, they've had these comebacks against ranked teams and they found ways, and people have given, the team a lot of credit, Hubert Davis not as much. But when they've lost, they lose by 16 to Michigan State. They lose by 14 to SMU. They put up 2 of their worst defensive performances in the history of Carolina basketball, pretty much, at least in the metrics era, against Stanford and California. And then they go kind of pull a no-show at Miami despite having to deal with some injury things there. And then State, they just get completely run out of the building to a team that is the most Jekyll and Hyde team in the country. So I bring that up to say I understand it, but we've been in this weird spot with Hubert. I feel like all season where I just don't feel like he gets very much credit when Carolina wins and has good performances. And when they lose, the 90% of the discourse is fire Hubert Davis immediately. We should have fired him 3 years ago. I just find it this weird spot we've been in all season.
Staying on this, let's parse through some of those losses.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Michigan State's a 3-point game with 9 minutes left. Michigan State beats them because their point guard decides to take over the game and gets in the lane. Carolina was unsettled still at point guard, and Seth wasn't there.
Mm-hmm.
They were in the game, and they were 3 points down after Caleb's 20-minute scoreless drought had concluded.
And Michigan State's a good team. Michigan State's a good team.
Very good team. They can make it to Indianapolis.
Mm-hmm.
Then you've got SMU. That was a close game. They struggled defensively all game. And I think they're better defensively on that stuff now because Louisville is Exhibit A. Louisville's better on the perimeter than SMU, and they were better defending Louisville than they were SMU. Stanford on the perimeter gave them crap, just terrible time. They couldn't defend Okori. 3 days later in Berkeley, they had 3 guards that scored, 19 or more. Stanford had 3 guards that scored 20 or more. SMU had 2 guards that went for like 20 plus. Another one was like at 14. So those 3 guard groups were giving them a lot of trouble. A lot of it was perimeter stuff. It was drives, kicking out the perimeter. Well, they've slowed some of that. For one, they're now established at the point. And I just said about Kayan's backup role and starting to grasp that. So you kind of have an understanding at the top now that maybe you didn't have during those games, right? Also, I just think that they're a little bit more physical now than they were then. It was Henry and Caleb, and that was pretty much it. I mean, Zayden was just out of his league against Michigan State, but that was looking over the shoulder Zayden. Now we don't have looking over the shoulder Zayden. He's not there, all right? And you have Jaron, who hadn't played a minute in the paint up until the Ohio State game. He's kind of gone in and out, and suddenly there's a little more physicality to his game, so they're better down low. They're a little bit better with rotating defensively and helping. It was more than one guy or 2 guys challenging shots at the rim now. You add Zane to the mix. Jaron had the block shot the other night. He's a little bit more of that guy. The areas that were beating them then appear to have been cleaned up some, and this team knows who it is now. They had a different starting point guard against Michigan State, a different starting point guard against SMU, a different starting point guard against Stanford, and Derek's first start was Berkeley. Mm-hmm. So, and then Miami, their 2 best players got hurt during the course of the game. Now, I think they probably would have lost anyway. I didn't think that they approached that well. They did not handle success well.
It's a tough one, yeah.
But you can, if you really want to start peeling away the layers, which I'm happy to do here in a 7-hour podcast, I do think that there are explanations about why certain things went the way they did. And let's face it, SMU pulled away late. Michigan State pulled away late. It wasn't like they were blown out of the gate from the open and just never fought. They were in those games. I was stunned when Michigan State was 55-52. I was stunned it was a 3-point game. It looked like it should have been a 15-point game at that time. But that chemistry and that grit and that fight, all that stuff that this team clearly has, was a part of keeping them in that game. But they didn't have Seth, and they just didn't close well. They didn't defend the top well at all. And Michigan State was a better team at that time. Might still be a better team.
Yeah, and that game was 6.5 years ago at this point too. So, but it counts. It was a game.
Thanksgiving Day.
Yeah, which might as well be 6 years ago. That's what it feels like.
It does.
But you're right. And the reason I brought that up, AJ, is I want to feed that into our kind of last thing we're going to talk about here, about some of the historical context about where Carolina is right now, 28 games in. They're sitting at 22-6, 10-5 in ACC play. So AJ crunched the numbers. This is what this record right now, 28 games in, kind of to compare it to some historical records. This is
going back to Roy's first year in 2004.
Okay, going back to Roy's first year. Okay, so that would be what, 2003 or 2004, excuse me. So ties for the best 28-game record since 2018, 2019. It's the second best 28-game mark since the 2017 national title season. There's also 9 teams since the 2003-2004, so Roy's first year, had better records 28 games in, and 2 teams also started at 22-6. So you look at that and you say, dang, like this has actually been a pretty good season for North Carolina historically too. I mean, again, we're not going back to the whole Dean Smith era because we're sitting here crunching numbers for 16 hours. But if you look at it, the last essentially 23 years, going back to Roy's first season, I mean, those stats and those facts rank. I mean, they show nicely with this team, AJ. So that's another reason I brought the Hubert discussion up, because I completely understand it. I get where people are coming from. Again, we spent a lot of time in the offseason, even going back years, talking about Hubert and what does he need to do? Is he on the hot seat? Is he not on the hot seat? These are conversations that we've had for a long time, and rightly so when you look at how his first four seasons went in particular. But Carolina this year, I think, has had a pretty good year. Of course, there's some games in there and some losses they like to have back, especially that West Coast trip we just talked about with SMU, Stanford, and California, where they just gave up 6 billion points to every guard on those three teams. But overall, you look at the body of work. You look at Carolina being 5-1 against ranked teams this year. You look at Carolina having that 3-point win over Duke. There's a lot of things you can point at and say, man, like, this has been a pretty good year. And I feel like it's an appropriate time to talk about it too, because I feel like after the Louisville win, some people, I think their tone and their tune changed a little bit. I don't really know how that saying goes. I don't know if it's tune or tone. It's probably tune.
Change your tune.
Yeah, it changed a little bit.
You could change your tone about their tune. Yeah, you got to give Hubert some. Here you go. Yeah, you got to give.
Started giving him a little bit more credit, AJ. I really do. I think I've seen a little bit of a shift in that. And by no means has he been perfect. By no means am I saying that he was going to be here for the next 10 years. And, just because he's 22-6 this year and it's tied for the best 28 game record since 18-19, that he deserves to sign a 5-year contract extension. That's not what I'm saying. But the historical context of the last 22, 23 seasons shows that, man, it's actually been pretty good this year. They need to finish strong, and they have some opportunities to do so. But it's not all doom and gloom, despite every time Carolina losing this year, it feeling like everybody's ready to burn the program down and start over. I just find it kind of fascinating how things have transpired this year, in particular with Hubert.
I do think it's interesting that when they have a high stretch and people are kind of thinking, hey, maybe they can make a run, then they hit the low stretch and people want to shovel dirt on Hubert. They've had this is the 23rd season since Roy's first year. Roy coached 18 years. This is Hubert's 5th. All right, 9 times they've had a better record at this point in time. Now think about that. You can talk about 5, 7, 8, 9, 12, 16 and 17, or 17 was one, 19 was another. But like 11, this is the same record they had in 11, I believe. Mm-hmm. And they got to a regional final. That team was growing as the season went on. They didn't look regional final probably through January, but then started to take on that look. Mm-hmm. They have a better record right now than 22 did. 22 was 20-8. And the ACC is better this year than it was in 2022. So 9 teams in the last 23 have had a better record through 28 games. 2 other teams had the same record, and the rest had a worse record. That puts these guys right in the middle. Now, some may come on here and say, yeah, but they didn't play that tough a schedule. Some of his teams played better schedules. Well, you just read off who they beat and who they've beaten. I think they would have handled a lot of people. If they would have played Akron instead of Radford, which would have been a better opponent and a net opponent, they still would have beaten them too. Okay. So we know that. I think it's interesting. They're kind of like in the middle. This is sort of an average Carolina season in a lot of ways. But what's interesting is, like 22 was doing at this time during the year, they're getting better. Mm-hmm. Right? Like 2011 was doing, they're getting better. I think 16 and 17 in particular was getting better. That was the redemption team, but they lost Marcus Page and Bryce Johnson from the year before. Mm-hmm. And it took a while before they really got that thing humming. So, and I'm not saying they're going to do what those teams did, but I think it's fair. Okay, how does this team compare 28 games into the season going back to Roy's first year? I think that 22-6 with the teams that they've beaten, people should pump the brakes a little bit. That doesn't mean that you don't put your foot on the gas pedal if they lose at home to Virginia Tech. That's going to happen if they lose that game.
And I get that.
They've got to finish this thing out because the story's not finished being told yet. We don't know what it's going to be. They could lose the next 3 and then lose in the first round in Buffalo, and everyone wants to just inferno the entire situation. And we know how people are going to react. All we know are 28 games in, and I'm not projecting anything from this. I'm just telling you, 28 games in, it's not been that bad, especially when only 13 of those games, your top 3 players have been in uniform together and been healthy from the beginning of the game to the end of the game.
Yeah, Carolina's had to deal with some adversity this year. And like I said, I think Hubert does deserve credit for the job he's done this year. I think some of the losses this year have been bad. But again, I don't think it's all been down to him, especially the last 2 losses when you look at Miami and State. Should Carolina have been better prepared against the Wolfpack despite having Henry and Caleb? Absolutely. Do I think
that was a bad game for Hubert?
And then the body language from the coaching staff down was the worst I've seen it this year. Even
the defense in SMU, the defense in California, a lot of that is going to be on the head coach, because if you insist on switching everything, and one of my pet peeves about this group this year is that they switch sometimes when it's completely unnecessary. Mm-hmm. And that leads to another switch, which leads to really bad matchups.
And that goes on the head coach.
And opponents were picking that apart earlier. I love the switching he did the other night. They were going under the screens early. It was not a good plan, but he switched the plan and he trusted the kids. Switch if you need to. I think that's powerful, because we said this before just recently in a pod, and I'll say it again. One of the things I was told before the season by people who know the situation very, very well are right there. He needs to learn how to trust his players more. We've seen that throughout the year. Now he's trusting the group more. Now, he's got to stop doing this, call and play number 5 when they're in transition. He still does that sometimes, but
it's not perfect. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But we've seen before when a set broke down that they would kick it out and reset, and he'd just call another play. He'd call multiple plays on a possession. That didn't happen the other night. They played and they scored when the sets didn't work. He's really starting to try. I think Zayden High has helped him trust, because he had a preconceived notion in his head. Really good practice player, doesn't translate to the court. Now suddenly you're seeing all that translate to the court, and Hubert's like, okay, I actually trust. Overnight I trust Zayden, when maybe he didn't before. I think it's healthy for a coach. That's why coaches used to get 5 years no matter what, because it takes time, especially when they're first-time head coaches. So we've seen a lot of growth from him. There's still things to criticize, and we're not shilling for him at all, because there are half the people on here say, oh, you hate Hubert, you want him out. Half say you love Hubert, you're part of the PR campaign. Neither could be further from the truth. Our job is to write and talk about how they play and how they say what they say about how they play. And I think there are a lot of very positive things to point to based on some of the things that you brought up in this podcast. And 22-6 is not that terrible, man. It's not that bad. It's kind of who Carolina is in a lot of ways.
No, it's not.
And has been for a while for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, especially you look at the last 8 years previous to this one. I mean, Carolina's lost 11 games twice, 13 games once, 19 games once, 14 games last year. So, I mean, again, Carolina could lose every game the remainder of the season, AJ. They could lose the next 3, first round of the tournament, ACC tournament, first round of the NCAA tournament, and finish with 11 losses, and it would still be less losses they've had in 3 out of those 8
Let's
seasons.
also remember this program's been to the Elite 8 once since 2017.
Yes.
And that was a club that was 20-8, 28 games through the season.
I think it's funny you say that, because I almost tweeted, we'll wrap it up with this because I don't want to go 6 hours. I'll wrap it up with this. I almost tweeted out this week because I think one of the things that people who have made their mind up on Hubert often forget or choose to ignore is that Carolina's downfall, whatever you want to call it, because I've heard people describe it like that. The standard they were at and how it's been maybe the last 5-6 seasons maybe hasn't met the super high standard that it sets, especially early in Roy's tenure. But I think people forget that Carolina basketball was not trending in a very good direction at all the few seasons before Hubert even got the job. I feel like some people talk about Hubert as like it's because I see these tweets and I see these posts. Hubert single-handedly ruined the program. He set this program back 5 years, blah, 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 blah. And I say, okay, like you can have that opinion, whatever. I understand in some ways where you're coming from with that. I don't agree with it all the way, but I understand where you're coming from, as we've talked about there. But you have to remember that this program was not trending in this direction before he took over, by no means. And I feel like that is often ignored with him by people, like I said, who've already made their mind up on Hubert probably a year and a half, 2 years ago. And I find it interesting because I understand the standard has not been met. You just go look at Carolina's records, going back when Roy's early tenure, even, late in his tenure before he had that little bit of a fall off. I mean, losing 10 games in a season was like a catastrophe for North Carolina. That happens more often than not now. So I understand where the standard conversation comes in, but let's not act like things were all sunshine and rainbows before Hubert took over a program, also having to deal with NIL, also having to deal with the changing landscape, transfer portal becoming what it is, all this stuff. Let's just not act like it's all Hubert's fault. Carolina was in a awesome spot before he took over, and they were winning national titles and going to Final Fours and losing 3 games a season. No, that's not where Carolina was at. So I think people like to either forget that on purpose or they just choose to ignore it. I don't know which one it is, but I don't see it talked about very often.
Yeah, we'll call it 2010 NIT. 11, really good team. He made the change at point, and they took off. Similar time frame to Derek taking over at point this year. 2012, damn good team. Very well could have won national title. Probably
one of the biggest
best team in the country. Yeah, 13 and 14 were so-so teams. 15 was so-so. They had double-figure losses, got to a Sweet 16. 16 and 17, one play, lost the title at the buzzer, then they win it. 18 was a 2 seed, but they had double-digit losses. 19 was a really good team. I think it was Final Four bound, but then they all were sick in Kansas City. I know for a fact because I heard them throwing up in the locker room, in the bathroom when I was in the locker room. 20, terrible. 21, bad. Roy quit, or not quit, excuse me, retired. Mm-hmm. I didn't mean to say quit. He retired.
I know what you
but in his mind, because I remember the moment.
Yeah,
remember, he said they played Marquette and lost, and he called a play, they didn't run it. And he just bitched up a storm about it.
I think it was Caleb Love too, running point.
Their next game was Florida State, and he told us in a press conference on Zoom, everything was on Zoom, that they ran a play. They didn't run a play I called, and it'll never happen again. And they beat Florida State by like 40, right? Against Wisconsin, he calls a play. They don't run it. He turns to Steve Robinson. I was there. There weren't that many people out in the building, but I was there in West Lafayette. It's the only time I've been in Purdue's arena. He turns to Steve Robinson, shrugs his shoulders, sits down, puts his hands in his face. That was the moment.
Yeah, he's like, I'm done with this.
So that's when he says he wasn't the right man for the job. It's stuff like that. So they've 16 and 17, 19. We'll give 22 because they got to the title game. 2 years ago in 24 was a Carolina year. That's not a lot. Mm-hmm. Going back to 12, and I still think that team would have won the title had Kendall not gotten hurt. But 22 and 6 at this point, I think, is pretty solid. Let's see what it turns into. If it turns into 23 and 8 here in 10 days, then okay, 23 and 8 is not that great. Carolina should be a little bit better than that. If it's 24 and 7, that's probably what people expect right now. Could be 25 and 6. They could go in there and beat Duke again if they're fully healthy. Of course they can. They did it once already.
I think so too. Yeah, no, there's no doubt about it.
Duke's playing great, man.
Yeah.
Duke's playing great, but
and Carolina's a blue blood. I mean, the expectations
Carolina creates matchup issues for Duke, by the way. I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Yeah, just kind of feeding on what you're saying. Like, Carolina's a blue blood. The expectations are so high here from a fan base perspective that it almost is like these conversations here almost change on a game-by-game basis, because you're right. Like, things are pretty good right now because Carolina's coming off a nice win over Louisville without their best player even playing. You go lose to Virginia Tech on Saturday night, or lose to Clemson, beat Virginia Tech and lose to Clemson, then like the conversation is going to change because people are going to be pissed off again.
And
that's how it works. You know what I mean?
And we're part of that.
Because
it's interesting because you guys speak so highly after a win and you critique after a loss. Well, yeah, one's a win, one's a loss, of course. One of the things that I actually love about covering Carolina and covering Carolina to a demanding fan base that knows what they're talking about, knows what they're looking at, Jacob, is that I kind of like that there's a referendum on every game because it places such importance on every game. There's some fan bases that are like, yeah, well, they're coming in a couple weeks. I'll watch that game. But Carolina could go practice tomorrow night and do layup drills, and they're on the ACC network, and they're going to get ratings. Someone's going to criticize the fact that Jonathan Powell missed 3 out of 5 layups. What the hell? He's not concentrating during practice. Uh-huh. You'll have comments like that, and I adore that, man. I think it's great. Obviously, it's great for us professionally speaking, but it's great because I love the passion. So the referendum on every game is part of the passion. The 22 and 6, 5 and 1 against ranked teams, and that's not good enough. I love that passion. I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
I think if you're North Carolina and if you've been alive long enough and saw when, man, it was Carolina for so long. And then Duke kind of took over, and you got to be honest with yourself. Duke bigger buzz on the road than Carolina is when they go places. But it wasn't like that for a long time. It took until Dean retired. Even with Duke's 2 titles in 91 and 92, it took Dean retiring for that to change. And then K got his. He got one in 01. The 99 team was incredible. 2001 and 2002 didn't win it, but 2002 may have been better than 2001 for Duke. And they suddenly became a show. They were a traveling show. Carolina was the traveling show before that. Mm-hmm. And they've been damn good since then, for the most part, collectively, and certainly compared to just about everybody else. And that's part of it too. Carolina fans look down the road and they see what Duke's doing. Like, our 22-6 sucks because we're not even close. You beat Duke, and damn it, we're not even close to Duke. So that's a big part of it as well. It's like Michigan going, if you still had ties, like 9-2-2, right? Or 9-2-1, and Ohio State goes 11-1. Damn it, we beat them, but look at them; they're ranked higher. They're going to the CFP, that kind of thing. So I get it. I totally get it. I understand it. It's not going to change. I don't want it to change because it's natural and it's the fuel of the passion. But we wanted to put into perspective just what 22-6 is and let people come to their own conclusion. I think it's right smack in the middle. Year 5, $14 million roster. People say, well, it shouldn't be smack in the middle. I think you can make a great argument for that.
Absolutely.
They've lost games they had no business losing.
Absolutely. All right, man. I think it's a good place to wrap this up. We've gone longer than we thought we would and wanted to, but that's part of the course here at the Hero Report, presented by TarHeal247.com. A lot of interesting topics hit on here. Make sure you guys get involved in the comments. Let us know what you think about Trimble and his play recently, how his numbers kind of correlate with North Carolina's success. Let us know what you think about that little fact about Carolina against ranked teams. Do you look at that and say, oh, why does Carolina keep trailing? Or do you look at it as a positive, like, man, well, they get behind some good teams, and they all more oftentimes than not find a way to win. We want to hear from you guys, and also, of course, getting involved with the Hubert Davis conversation as well. I'm sure there'll be a lot of differing opinions on that one. So keep it locked, guys. TarHeal247.com. Links in the description. Come on over and sign up for a VIP subscription. We'd love to have you on our awesome website of passionate Carolina fans, biggest community out there as well for Carolina fans. So again, come on over and sign up, and you get so much extra content, information, access that you do it if you're not signed up. So links in the description below. Come on over. All right, guys, like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell. See y'all next time. Thanks.